Okay, so this presentation is a broad-reaching presentation on amateur radio organizations, uh, all kinds of organizations, from international to local. And these organizations can provide support for all your various interests in amateur radio, as you'll see. So let's start out with national organizations. Practically every country in the world has a national radio organization. For instance, Canada has the RAC, the Radio Amateurs of Canada. French has the REF, which translates to Network of French Transmitters. The RSGB, the Radio Society of Great Britain. The New Zealand Amateur Radio Transmitters, the NZART. The Wireless Institute of Australia. And of course, our own ARRL. That's our national organization. Here's a link to arrl.org. Over 150,000 members. All of them have these symbols. Most of them look a little bit like the ARRL emblem, with the basics of a radio, an antenna, a coupling coil, and a ground. But some of them are quite different, like the Wireless Institute of Australia. Anyway, if you, whatever country you're in, and we have at least a person here from Ghana and a person from Chile, you should join your local, your national organization. ARRL membership represents the United States amateur radio with the FCC, with the ITU, and with Congress. It also is responsible for a lot of publications. QST, of course, QEX, which is a kind of a more advanced technical magazine. The National Contests Journal, NCJ, which obviously specializes in contestings. The OTA, which stands for On the Air, for getting people started in the hobby, which is a regular publication, and many manuals. So, they do publicity for amateur radio. Of course, in the media, they support Hamfests and also have national conventions. And they have a field organization. In Maryland, the Maryland, D.C. section manager, our section is called Maryland, D.C. The U.S. and Canada have sections, and the sections have areas, regions and areas. So the Maryland section manager is AB3WG, and here's the link for the Maryland people. But if you're interested in knowing what your ARRL field organization is, you can use this link right here, www.arrl.org/sections, and it will tell you, you can find your section and your section manager, and you can get in touch with him. He'd love to hear from you if you don't know him and haven't met him. He'll tell you what clubs are on active in the area, what kind of emergency communications things you can get involved in, all of the range of things that are going on in your local section. They also sponsor an incoming and an outgoing QSL bureau. We'll talk about QSL bureaus on one of the evenings coming up. I guess we do that on the contesting night. No, that's logging software. DXing night, April 17th. We will be talking about QSL bureaus, and both incoming and outgoing. The incoming bureau, you don't have to be a member, but you do have to send some money to your sorter. I am a sorter, so I'm sympathetic to that. And outgoing service, you do have to be a member, and there is a fee for that. So QST magazine, these other magazines, these in digital editions are available to all members. You can do archive and periodical searches for QST and a lot of other publications going all the way back to the very first issues. They have a free e-newsletter that they send out regularly that you can sign up for. Excuse me. They have a product review archive. Every issue of QST does product reviews, and the members have access to an archive of all these reviews. They will have an email forwarding system, which will be your call at arrl.net. So if you change your email address, you can always have this constantly is your email address for ham use. They have a members directory, and as I said, the outgoing QSL service, and they have ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service training courses that they provide discounts on if you're a member. Okay, that's our national organization. The national organizations have joined together ever since 1925, and it's called the International Amateur Radio Union, or the IARU. Formed in 1925, there are 3 regions that correspond with the 3 ITU regions. We are in Region 2 here in North America and South America. The president, just for your interest, is VE6SH is the president, Tim Elam, and Tom Reddy, I imagine he pronounces it, DF200, is the vice president of IARU. There are 93 societies in Region 1, 40 in Region 2, and 31 in Region 3. The American Radio Relay League operates the IARU International Secretariat from its headquarters. So we kind of like the United Nations is here, the IARU is here too. Each of the 3 regions has an executive council. Just for your info, VE3YV is the president of the Region 2 Executive Council. They represent amateur radio every year at the ITU World Radio Conference, where the World Administrative Radio Conference, is really called WARC, where the international treaties are set up through the United Nations on communications. And this is where we protect our bands from encroachment and even sometimes get new bands and new privileges allocated to us, like the 60-meter band, for instance. Other activities that the IARU does is they have a monitoring system with volunteer monitors to try to keep a control of international interference and intrusion into the amateur radio bands. They have a propagation beacon project around the world. They sponsor a contest called the International HF World Championship Contest, and they sponsor the Workdoll Continents Award. The International Amateur Radio Union, IARU, been around since 1925. Some other venerable organizations: the Young Ladies Radio League, YLRL. It's an organization for women with amateur radio licenses, and as their motto is, it extends to women all over the world. Founded in 1939, more than 500 members. Does have small dues that they charge. They publish a publication called YL Harmonics. They sponsor the YLOM contest in February. They have special awards that they support, and they have a convention every year in the YLRL convention. I think this is this year's date. Anyway, if you're interested, here's that link. The Radio Club of America was formed around the same time as the ARL. In fact, a little bit earlier. It was formed in 1909. They say in their website, it's the oldest, most prestigious group of communication professionals in the world, with members around the globe, dedicated to the wireless art and the science for the betterment of society. It's not exclusively amateur radio. They do sponsor some amateur radio related scholarships, among other things. Local radio clubs are the best deal in amateur radio. There you'll find Elmering, and if those of you who are brand new to amateur radio, there was an article written many, many years ago in QST where someone recalled Elmer, the fellow on his block when he was a kid who had a radio license, who helped him get his station together and got him into amateur radio. And that article was so popular that the name Elmer has been used instead of mentor for the people that help folks get started in amateur radio. And your local radio club is certainly a great source of Elmers. Of course, there's fellowship, meeting all the other folks with the same interests you have. Usually they have programs of interest to the club members on subjects like we're hearing in this series. They do training for the license. And they conduct group activities such as ham-fests, where you gather together and swap gear and look at the latest equipment that's being released by some of the manufacturers. Repeaters are often sponsored, put together, and maintained by the club. They do emergency exercises and community service, conduct nets for training and just for social purposes. They'll do special events, and by that I mean special event stations like we talked about with amateur radio in the electronics in World War II, that our club, the special event station W2W, that our club, the National Electronics Museum, Amateur Radio Club, sponsored. They'll often join together to enter contests, and some of them are, of course, contest-oriented clubs, but even the ones that are not often will get a team together either to enter as a club with their multiple scores, or to join together and have a multi operation. And field day, of course, is a very popular club activity, going out in the field in June and putting up your station and working all the other guys out and gals out in the field. And, of course, bringing in speakers to make presentations to the group. You can find a club near you. ARRL has over 2,750 affiliated clubs, and not all clubs are affiliated with ARRL, so there's more than that clubs available. But the affiliated clubs you can find by going to this link, arrl.org/find-a-club. And this is a live link that will be on this presentation. This will allow you to search by zip code, city, state, ARRL section for clubs near you. And they'll provide you the city, the call sign, what the clubs specialize in, what services they have, and how to get to them via the internet. Clubs are formed on various bases. Some are what I would call general clubs, and they're more geographic than anything else. They don't have too much, they don't have too narrow a focus, except to say, well, we're drawing from this county or this part of the state. Others have special interests, like DXing clubs. They're concentrating on getting people together with that specific interest, or contesting, or emergency comms, or amateur TV, or makers groups that have amateur radio clubs associated with them and want to build stuff and operate it. Some are concentrating on repeaters, some VHF and UHF operation. Some are interested in voluntary examiner work, VEs. Some of the clubs are employee groups. Many large employers have clubs. They're amateur radio clubs. The Northrop Grumman amateur radio clubs sponsor locally here is joined up with actually the ARCNEM, the Amateur Radio Club of the National Electronics Museum. They used to be separate, a Northrop Grumman club, but there's a net that's held for Northrop Grumman folks all around the country that the Northrop Grumman clubs are involved in. Many schools, from elementary through universities, have clubs, and retirement facilities have clubs set up so that folks who no longer have their own station at home can get together and use facilities there. Just in case you're interested, here's the information on ARCNEM. We've talked about it many times. Amateur Radio Club of the National Electronics Museum. Their meetings are 6 p.m. on the second Tuesday of the month on Zoom. Here's a link. Their W2W I've mentioned already. A special event station that commemorates D-Day in Pearl Harbor. They have their ham station is K3NEM. Done very well. They're on the DXCC honor roll. And they sponsor these licensing classes and operating series. And they go out like almost, I wouldn't say every club does, but many clubs do for field day. So now want to talk about service organizations. One of these is the military affiliate, a military auxiliary, changed its name recently, radio system. The U.S. Department of Defense sponsors this program. It's managed and operated by the Army and the Air Force. So there's an Army and an Air Force military auxiliary radio system. They sometimes call themselves Army Mars and Air Force Mars. It's a civilian auxiliary of the licensed amateur radio operators interested in assisting the military with contingency HF communications. Their emphasis is on a special kind of serial phase shift keying, supplemented by amateur radio digital modes. They have online encryption and automatic link establishment. Now remember, these are not amateur radio stations, although they're amateur radio operators. You need a special license, which you can get through the Military Auxiliary Radio System program, and join their nets, which are not held on amateur radio frequencies, but very close to them, so that you can use your amateur radio equipment to participate. We can't use online encryption. The military can. So using your station on the Military Auxiliary Radio System nets, you can participate in some communications modes that you can't do on amateur radio. Most of they're running quarterly. Most of the time, they're running quarterly contingency communications exercises. The National Traffic System, which we'll have a presentation on June the 19th. According from their website, the National Traffic System is an organized network of amateur radio operators sponsored by the ARRL for the purpose of relaying messages throughout the U.S. and Canada. Many traffic nets are affiliated with the National Traffic System. Here's a link if you're interested in the National Traffic System. And as I said, we'll have a special presentation on this on June 19th. Many amateur radios participate in Skywarn. This is working with the National Weather Service. The goals of amateur radio Skywarn, as from their site, to have a network of spotters in place to report severe weather. To activate this network as needed. To coordinate reports from the spotters in a professional manner. To relay these reports to the National Weather Service in a timely manner. It's not a club, but there are local groups. You do need to complete some online training modules, 2 of them, in order to become a member of Skywarn. And then you need to participate in spotter training webinars. You register then with the network. Here's the link to the weather.gov site for Skywarn, and in the national capital area, which is where the Maryland, Pennsylvania folks might be interested in getting involved. This is the link to the national capital area Skywarn support group. But if you go to this link, you'll find the link to the one in your area as well. This is really a great service to the community, especially in hurricanes and tornadoes and other severe weather situations, blizzards and that kind of thing. We're having a spread out group with a large number of spotters reporting weather conditions is a tremendous help to the National Weather Service. There are some emergency communications organizations that the American Radio Relay League is involved in. One of them is ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. Link to it right here. It's open to all amateurs. You don't have to be an ARL member. They have training courses and nets, and we'll have a separate presentation on ARES again coming up at the end of June. RACES is actually identified as a Part 97 service. It's called the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. It is amateur radio operators using amateur radio equipment and the amateur radio bands, but not unlike Mars. I mean, this is all amateur radio, but you must be certified by a civil defense organization as registered with that organization to be a part of RACES. And if in Howard County here, my local county, here's the link to the Howard County ARES RACES. Actually, in my county here in Howard County, ARES and RACES are linked together. And RACES is recognized usually by the local emergency management offices, and the government, in the federal government, RACES is often called out in the SOPs for the emergency operations centers. So they want you to be members of RACES. Again, folks who are interested in emergency communication should check into ARES and RACES, and here's some links to help you out. This link would be a great one to start with. The ASME Foundation is a not-for-profit group. They support scientific and educational projects. They fund de-expeditions. They are emphasizing currently developing amateur radio in emerging countries and encouraging youth participation in amateur radio. So they've provided radios and training in some countries where there's very little amateur radio at all, and especially to young people. And they also sponsor scholarships to young radio amateurs. The president and director is my friend Ward Silver and Zero AX. Ward is retired now as author of many of the ARRL publications, and he helped us. I am the chairman of the question pool committee that writes the questions for the amateur radio exams, and Ward has been a great help in the past in reviewing our question pool after we prepare it and helping us doing editing with it. If you're interested in what the ASME is up to and you want to help them out, here's a link to www.yasme.org. Now there's some technical organizations. Remember those purposes that I talked about earlier, the 97.1 purposes? Well, the amateur radio technical organizations support that technical aspect of amateur radio. One of those is AMSAT. And as its name kind of implies, it's related to amateur satellites, the Amateur Satellite Corporation. Here's a link to it. Its goal, according to its publications, foster amateur radio's participation in space research and communications. Membership and benefits include a subscription to the AMSAT Journal and discounts on purchases made through the AMSAT store on books, hardware, and tracking software and the like. The AMSAT news service bulletins, however, are free. If you want to get these, keeping up to date with what's going on in amateur satellites, you can use this link and sign up for the AMSAT service bulletins. They also sponsor a annual space symposium and general meeting in the fall. We'll have a presentation on AMSAT from two aspects. What is AMSAT's organization about? And also, how do I get started in amateur satellite work? What do I really need? What does it entail? What do you need to know? That will be on May 22nd. AMRAD is a cool group of technically oriented amateur radio folks promoting radio and electronic technology by advocating design of experimental equipment and techniques, promoting basic and applied research, organizing technical forums, collecting and disseminating technical information, and they hold monthly meetings in Fairfax, Virginia. But you can connect up to what AMRAD is doing. You don't have to be physically present at these meetings to participate in some of this research that they're working on. The Tucson Amateur Packet Group sounds local, but TAPR has been responsible for a lot of the development of amateur radio digital communications. They have a quarterly newspaper called PSR. They have kits that they make available. And with the ARRL, TAPR sponsors the annual Digital Communications Conference. Here's a link to TAPR if you're interested in not just packet, but digital communications. Check out TAPR, T-A-P-R. Now there's some organizations aimed at promoting operating, to promote and hone specific online skills. For instance, DXing. DXers love to get together and talk about the DX that they worked, where they found it, the ones that got away. And there's some very active and large organizations, such as the Northern California DX Foundation, NCDXF, and INDEXA, the International DX Association. These organizations sponsor de-expeditions around the world, and many people contribute to them. And you'll see their names showing up as sponsors of all the major de-expeditions. There are also some clubs that sponsor major gatherings. The Pacific Northwest DX Convention is held every year. And this one this year is in Clackamas, Oregon, from August 15th to August 17th. The W4 DXCC conference is in September in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. If you're interested in that, here's a link. The 74th International DX Convention will be held, this should be 11th to 13th in Visalia. This is generally the hams call this Visalia, and people from all over the world come to Visalia to talk about DX and see presentations made by the major DX expeditions and so forth. There also is, I didn't have it on the list here, but at Dayton coming up in May, middle of May, there's it's a dinner, DX dinner. There is a special DX presentations that run through the entire weekend there. Also, the Daily DX, and my good friend Bernie McClenny is the creator and editor of the Daily DX. You can subscribe to this, and it will keep you up to date on all the happenings of all the DXpeditions and folks that are on the air from rare countries and so forth. And he's going to talk to us on April 17th about improving your DX skills, how to work on those rare ones. But he also has a link to 125 DX and contesting clubs at this link, the www.dailydx.com/DX-clubs. Again, these are live links in the presentation that we'll post. So if you want to check out DXing clubs that you might want to connect up with, and contesting clubs in the same list, he's got a great list here available to you. Contesting clubs are very popular. I'm a member of the Potomac Valley Radio Club. The Frankfort, Pennsylvania Radio Club is a big one. The Science Society of Midwestern Contesters, Yankee Clippers, Northern California, Minnesota Wireless. These are the ones that are the largest, but there are a lot more. They're formed to share operating and station building skills and to compete with other clubs, as putting in a score for the entire club membership. If you're interested, the Daily DX link that we just gave you will provide you links to DX clubs as well. Our contesting presentation will be on May 1st, and we'll be talking about these clubs. My club, Potomac Router Radio Club, their purpose is competing and winning club competitions, developing operating and technical skills, sharing information, knowledge, attracting, mentoring, and supporting new contesters, and developing a spirit of camaraderie and fun. Membership from the circle centered roughly on Richmond, Virginia. It's the radius established by the ARL for contests, roughly 175-mile radius. However, it's open to people from anywhere around the world. And there are members all around the United States, even around the world. If you're interested in PVRC, there's the link. There are no dues. Prospective members must attend 3 meetings and be voted in. I've never seen anybody who wasn't voted in. Great opportunity is a gathering at the W3 LPL station, which we talked about the weekend before field day. They have 16 regional meetings over that 175-mile radius circle. They have a great online reflector with lots of tips and equipment for sale that you can join, even if you're not a member. Monthly newsletter that's available online. They have their own Facebook page. They have special awards that they give out to the club members, and they have their own, well, it's not really their repeater, but they kind of have adopted this repeater as their place to hang out. So if you're in the area, 146,600 in, 147,000 out. It's kind of unusual because 147,000 can be an output from above or below. In this case, the input is below. There's a number of organizations promoting and training CW. One of these is called FIS because, after all, you're fist is your characteristic nature of your CW sending is called your fist. He's got a great fist, people will say. Their purpose is to promote CW on amateur radio. Were founded back in 1987. Membership in the American chapter is now dues free. They have a quarterly publication online, or if you pay a few bucks, you can get it in print if you want. You get a number. They have operating activities and awards for contacting members. FIST is a very popular organization promoting CW. CW Ops, another group, very, very active. They sponsor weekly CW contests on Wednesdays. I think there's another session on the weekends too, but they're 3 60-minute sessions on Wednesdays. They have annual International CW Open contests. And they conduct the CW Academy, which many people have. I of course knew Morse code well before the CW Academy came along, but many people have gotten their CW skills honed and are on the air operating in CW have told me how helpful the CW Academy has been. They have 3 sessions: January, February, May, June, and September, October. You sign up for these things. You have to have good internet access, which everybody pretty much does, is on this site. A webcam and a keyer with side tone and a keyer paddle in order to participate. And they have mentors there with you, and it's live groups practicing and learning CW together at various levels. They have various levels of training from pure beginners to fairly advanced CW. Here's the link to CW Ops. The Straight Key Century Club is a cool group. They're interested in promoting using manual keying, straight keys, bugs, and quote side swipers, which are, I won't go into what they are, but they're a way of sending, an ancient way of sending Morse code. And they have these frequencies that they hang out on, and they love to exchange their straight key Century Club numbers. I have a straight key Century Club number. Mine is 13447. So whenever I hear somebody up in these frequencies, I can tell they're sending manually, not with keyers, and I'll give them a call and exchange straight key Century Club numbers with them. Promoting other operating activities. The Northeast Weak Signal Group, which has a cool name, News, they're headquartered in Long Meadow, Massachusetts, but they are a very active VHF operation promoter, and they do have equipment that they provide, make available, special VHF and UHF and microwave equipment that you can buy kits and things through them. It's worth checking out if you're interested in VHF Plus. Mount Airy VHF Radio Club in the Philly area, called the Pack Rats, a long-time group with lots of members around the country. If you're a 6-meter person, the 6-meter International Radio Club, SMERC. You see their SMERC down here? Here's the Pack Rat here. Here's the SMERC. And if you're interested in UHF, that's especially 6 meters, that's a great group to link into, SMERC. VHF UHF presentation will be on April 10th with this group. I mentioned QRP. There are many local, regional, and national clubs supporting low power operation, helping folks with equipment, putting out kits, organizing activities. This is just a couple I picked at random. This link here will give you a link to QRP low power operating groups. This is at the ARL.org, QRP-low-power-operating. If you're interested in RTTY, the Scandinavian Amateur Radio Teleprinter Group, SARTG, promotes RTTY contests every year. They have a special RTT award that they give out for contacting Scandinavian countries. The British Amateur Radio Data Group, BARTG, also promotes RTTY and all digital modes and sponsors some major RTTY contests and awards. Here's the link to BARTG. If people are interested in activating lighthouses, I actually am a volunteer at the Thomas Point Shoal Light here. Have nothing to do with amateur radio, but I just think lighthouses are kind of cool, and so I'm a volunteer there at the lighthouse. But also the lighthouses are activated on amateur radio. They don't actually have to be in the lighthouse. They have to be on the premises of the lighthouse. And there are people who collect how many lighthouses they can work, and the special QSLs from the lighthouse. The Amateur Radio Lighthouse Society has over 1,600 members, and if you're interested, check out the ARLHS. 1010 International was developed in 1962 to promote activity on 10 meters. They still sponsor lots of awards and contests and scholarships. You get a special 1010 number. You have to work 10 people on 10 meters that are members. That's the name 1010. And they have an annual dues of $15. And you can keep your 1010 number even if you don't renew. They have special awards that as a member you can get, but they're awards you can get without being a member as well. And they sponsor scholarships with this money that they collect. 1010 International. If you're on 10 meters, people will often ask you, what's your 1010 number? People interested in PSK might want to connect up with this is phase shifting like PSK 31. I might want to connect up with the European PSK group. They have their own numbers that they exchange between themselves on PSK. It's free. They'll send you a certificate by email. And they manage something called the Ultimate Award Application Center software. This is kind of like Log of the World for awards. You send your log for verification and qualifications of various awards, not just their own. It's kind of a cool idea. Here's a link to the European PSK Club. FT8 people, yeah, you got your club too. FT8 Digital Mode Club was created in 2017. The mode's pretty new. They issue awards and promote FT8 operation as if it needs much promotion. More than 25,000 members in 150 countries. They request a small donation, but you don't have to make it. There's no charge. And here's the link to FTD8DMC. It's a European group, but it's international. YOTA, Youth on the Air, promotes getting amateurs under the age of 25 on the air. They have a summer camp for ages 15 to 25. December YOTA month has a bunch of special events for people under 25. And they have a YOTA contest as well. And you'll hear YOTA operators on quite regularly. So if you are under 25, you will probably want to get involved with YOTA, Youngsters on the Air, Youth on the Air. Or if you want to help out with it, as an old-timer, they will welcome your help too. Here's youthontheair.org. And there's some achievement groups. If you live long enough or been licensed long enough, you can join the Quarter Century Wireless Association. You have to be licensed for 25 years prior to application. There's also recognition for 50 years. They have over 220 local chapters with local meetings. Often they have dinners, luncheons in the local areas. They also have meetings and dinners at the Big Hamfest, Dayton specifically. They have a beautiful journal, and they do support scholarships. For the real old timers, there's a thing called the Old Timers Club. Here's a link to the OOOTC, the Old Timers Club. You must be in two-way communication for 40 years, and then they publish something called the Spark Gap Times. They have close to 5,000 members. Actually, the guy who runs it is local here in Pikesville, Maryland. The First Class Operators Club, FOC, and at least two of our operating class speakers are members of this, is out of England. It's British-based. It has a limited membership of 500 folks. And they're really interested in CW primarily. And you have to have a conversational CW contact with an FOC member on at least 2 different bands, and then the person has to nominate you. And here's where you look for FOC folks. And then Once nominated, your call will be published in the journal, and you'll need 4 other sponsors to come forward, at least one in UK, to sponsor you. Once you're a member, there are some very, very popular operating events on the air for members of the FOC, and you hear them on quite regularly around these frequencies. 500 of them, specializing in CW. You'll run into them on CW if you're a CW op. There are lots of online groups. Some of you may have learned about this through various YouTube and Facebook and other online groups. If you're interested, you can, eham.net has over 5,000 ham radio links to discussion groups, online groups, reflectors, lists, and so forth. Here's a link to the EHAM forum, and it's got forums for all these various interests, and these are people that are wanting to share information about APRS or restricted antennas. If you're trying to put up an antenna in a restricted area, this group will help you out. Here's how to find them: eham.net/forum/index. Many Facebook groups. The largest, I think one of the largest, has almost 200,000 members. Some of you may be members. Here's a link to that. And if you want to find out all the groups that are on Facebook, here's a link to ham groups. Many local clubs have Facebook groups. And there's some non-ham clubs of interest. The Morse Telegraph Club specializes in landline, you know, the kind that you hear in the Westerns, the clickety-clack type Morse code that was sent over landlines in the telegraph days. Morse Telegraph Club encourages the continuation of sounder CW, if you will, sounder Morse code. And they wouldn't call it CW because there's no continuous wave involved. But you can do online sounder QSOs. I have done this. It is really fun. And they have their own publication called Dots and Dashes. Here's a link to the Morse Telegraph Club. And if you're interested in antique radio, the Antique Wireless Association, with over 4,000 members, linked by a common interest in the history of electrical and electronics and communications. They have a wonderful museum in Bloomfield, New York. Here's their homepage, and you can join up. In the local area here, there's the Mid-Atlantic Antique Radio Club, MAARC. And most of their meetings are at the Davisonville Recreation Center in Davisonville, Maryland. Here's the address. And April 13th, though, they're meeting in Centerville, Virginia, at this Sully Station Community Center. And they're going to have their meeting there from 10:30 to 3:30 on April 13th. So if you're interested in buying, selling, looking at, talking about old-time radio equipment, not just amateur radio, but any kind of radio equipment, these are 2 great groups. If you're a shortwave listener, there are groups for you too. The long wave, the people interested in long waves, you know, stuff below 500 kilohertz, have the Long Wave Club of America at this site. The North American Shortwave Listeners Group has a link here that you can join up with those guys. There are people that are interested in clandestine radios. They're called blackcatsystems.com, that their website is called. And they're interested in these number stations and these other mysterious stations that show up on shortwave from time to time. The International Radio Club of America is a bunch of broadcast band DXers. They're interested in listening to, you know, from 500 to 1800 kilohertz, where all of the AM broadcast stations are. And they're interested in logging as many of them as they can. And there's a group out of Scandinavia called the DX Listeners Club. It's from Finland. They're interested in mid-wave, MW, propagation. Medium wave, I should say, propagation. And they have an excellent propagation web page at www.solon.info.solar/solar. You don't have to write these down because they'll all be available on the posts. So I use this all the time. It gives you a plot of the sunspot activity over the year, kept current to the day. So with that, don't just sit there. Join an organization and learn something, teach something, and enjoy camaraderie with folks interested in the same things you are. Any questions?
Nope.
Let's take a break. I know I need one.
That was one of the questions. We're going to take breaks. So I will stop the recording.